So Steve Whittington has over 25 years of experience in the B2C, so business to customer, B2B, business to business, and B2A, business to any space. From consulting, marketing agency work, and as an executive and board member for manufacturing and retail firms, Steve has watched the evolution of customer expectations and the struggles organizations have faced grappling with this new reality. In his first book, Thriving in the Customer Age, which if you'd like a copy, I think we have a couple at the back with Colleen. Wave, Colleen. Thank you. Steve provides frameworks to help organizations understand and optimize the customer experience. So, without further ado, let's welcome up Steve.
For me, it all began in 2012 when I was expedition leader for a team out of Saskatoon that was attempting a first ascent in Canada's Yukon. There were 4 of us, 3 young men and me, as you can tell I'm a little older, that were going to climb a mountain that had not yet been climbed. We were sponsored by the Royal Canadian Geographic Society, a society that had owned its heritage to the Royal Geographic Society that went back all the way to the British Empire, that was trying to fill in the dark areas of the map. That's the same society that sent folks into the Northwest Passage, the lakes of Perry, Ross, and Franklin. And here we were, on a helicopter, flying over the Great Divide, headed into the Cluny Range, towards the approach of Mount Saskatchewan. As we flew over the glacier, the first thing we had to do was figure out a place that we could get off. Now the helicopter wasn't going to set down. Why would it? It could set down on a crevasse and fall into the crevasse. So me, as the expedition leader, I had to get out onto the skid and hang down and jump onto the glacier. That was my first moment of truth. So then we disembarked, got our gear out, and started heading up the glacier to make our first camp. Everything went great. We weaved our way through all the crevasses. It was a great day. High five, made camp. In fact, I was so confident that I sent 2 of my team members down to our cache to get more gear so we could have everything consolidated in one spot. And then, over the radio, I heard frantic cries. 2 members had fallen into a crevasse on a safe route. And here I was, the expedition leader, stuck in camp without a rope to go save them. So we waited. They got themselves out. And that was my next moment of truth. I soon realized that this mountain was going to give me many, many moments of truth. Our next obstacle was an ice fall, 1,000 feet high, that we had to try to work through. And as leader, I tried to lead the way, and I fell. The next moment of truth. But then, in the valley that approaches high mountainsides, for 2 days we had watched avalanches rip down these faces. And to get up to the high plateau, we had to climb that face. So we climbed it at night. And we made it to the plateau. Next moment of truth. And now we could see it. Now we could see the summit of Mount Saskatchewan that had never been reached. 3,200 feet above us. We had to reach the ridgeline and then work our way up the other ridgeline. So every way we went, we reached the ridgeline 1,000 feet up, worked our way along the ridgeline, and again, I fell. I fell into a crevasse, hundreds of feet deep. It was so vast that I felt that at least 2 members of my team were on the snow bridge. They pulled me out. We climbed around the face. We continued to fight our way up the mountain until we called it for that day because it was getting late. We established an anchor on the rock face and went back to our camp. We were happy. We were jubilant. We're like, yay, we know the way. Next day we went up. We got to our high point, and then we struggled and we fought. Put in ice screws, pitons, fighting our way up, scrambling our way up the face. We got up another 500 feet, and finally Sam Unger, 23 years old, a young man, was 100 feet above the last point of protection. Moment of truth. I called it. You got to come back down. It's not safe. There's no protection. So we called it. We got back down to the ridgeline. We had 1,000 feet to get to our camp. We still thought, hey, we'll just pick another way. And then I tried to climb down the face, and the face went, oof. The whole face was about to slide. They pulled me back up. Another moment of truth. Now we were stuck on a ridgeline, exposed to the elements. So we dug a snow hole. And we just sort of hunkered down for a day, getting hypothermic. And then, of course, while we're in the snow hole, a blizzard started and started loading the face with snow. A face that was already going to avalanche, and now was loaded with more snow. So yet it was a higher chance of avalanche. And we had to decide, would we stay up here and freeze to death, or would we go? So we made the decision together, another moment of truth. And away we went. We made it back down to our high camp. Again, we were excited. The young men on the team started talking. Hey, we can try this other way. No, there's no other way. Now, it wasn't about getting to the top. Now, it was about getting down. So for a week, we struggled and fought our way down the mountain, unable to be retracted by a helicopter, unable to be saved. There was no way home. Our route had been wiped out by avalanches many, many times, and we climbed at night. We climbed whenever we could, and we fought our way down that mountain till we finally got to the very spot that we'd been dropped off. We were right at the beginning, except now we've been surviving for over a week on 1,200 calories a day. We had 3,600 calories per person left. We had no food. But we knew, because I had a sat phone, that there was a food cache 90 miles away across the glacier as the crow flies that we would go to. So now we had a choice. Would we lay here and starve, or would we go? I said, if the helicopter doesn't come today, we're going at night. We're going to cross that glacier. We're going to march 30 miles a day, well, more like 90 miles a day across a glacier, and we're going to get to that food. Then all of a sudden, the weather broke. The helicopter came in. We got on. The pilot frantically said, now, get on. And we flew away. And we watched the weather close behind us. And that was my final moment of truth. So when I got back to the real world, I started thinking about moments of truth. I started thinking about, is there moments of intensity in business that have the same consequence of what I faced in the mountains? And over time, I ultimately come to the conclusion that yes, there are moments of truth in business that have the same level of consequence that I faced in the mountains. And those moments of truth happen all the time. They happen all the time because we now live in the world, which is the age of the customer. The customer has all kinds of choice. He doesn't have to stay with your brand. He can leave. And whether you're a small enterprise, a medium enterprise, or a large enterprise, you are delivering a customer journey that has moments of truth, that if they're bad, the customer will leave. Consider that 1 in 3 customers will leave after a bad experience. Consider that 92% of customers, even if they love the brand, will leave after just 2 or 3 poor experiences. This is catastrophic. What's happening? Those are moments of truth. The interesting thing is that the brands don't even know it, because only 1 in 26 customers complain. Layer on top of that, the most startling stat is that 80% of customers, 80% of companies believe they deliver a superior customer experience. Yet only 8% of their customers feel they are receiving that superior customer experience. That's a massive disconnect. And you know what? The impact is true. The impact that's happening is stark. In 2017, over 5,000 major retailers shuttered their doors. Sears Kmart closed like 358 stores, only to then shut down in 2018. Macy's, Payless Shoes, Lowe's, Victoria's Secret. The list goes on in 2018. And then yet in here in 2019, just recently, last week, we hear that Jet.com is shutting down, retracting its fresh food offering in New York City. And that's because it's in the bigger ecosystem of Walmart.com, which has lost $1 billion this year. So it doesn't matter if you're B2C, B2B, B to any. If you don't take care of your customer, you're going to pay the price. The moments of truth are real. So what's a brand to do? What's a company to do? What do you do faced with this stark reality? Well, you go back to basics. You focus on your customer. You obsessively focus on your customer. You figure out what their journey is. You figure out the moments that matter, and then you make them moments of magic. So what's a moment of truth? What is a moment of truth? Well, to understand what a moment of truth is, you need to know what the customer journey is. And the customer journey, as was stated earlier, is not just when the person comes in the store. It starts way before, when they have awareness of your brand and they're reading reviews online. They're looking at your reputation management. And it happens when they come into the store. But even before that, when they're in the parking lot looking at the store, or if you're B2B, when they're looking at your website or talking to your outside sales rep. The customer journey is every single interaction your brand has from beginning to end, from when they're using the product or when they're thinking about the service afterwards, how it made them feel. And that's the interesting thing. Customer service is not what the brand dictates. Customer service is a product of how you make the customer feel. That's actually what your customer experience is. Your customer experience is how the customer experiences it. Seems pretty simple, doesn't it? So, you think about the stats. Only 8% of customers feel like they're receiving superior customer service. So, if you want to make moments of magic, what you should do, or you want to have a remarkable, thrive in this age of the customer, all you have to do is just be a little bit better than the other 92%, right? I mean, only 8% are hitting it. So there's a lot of space there. But you have to be consistent. You have to deliver consistently. It has to be predictable. And you only have to be a little bit above average, and that will equal an amazing customer experience. Seems pretty easy, right? Just be a little bit above average and you'll equal amazing customer experience. I think we go a little overboard, but there's method to that madness. If you look at the most viral customer service moments in 2019, what you'll see Trader Joe's dancing employees cheer a child. It's a great little video. It's from the perspective of a parent. I'm a parent, and what's happening is the child is in a cart and the child is having a meltdown. That's every parent's worst nightmare. You're in a public space and your child is screaming. How do you deal with this child? You're no longer allowed to hit him, so how do you deal with them, right? So it's like, what am I gonna do, right? But Trader Joe's, what happened is the staff started dancing and singing as they're unloading the cart. It's awesome. The child was focused on these dancing fools, so to speak, and stopped crying. And the parent was filming this, right? So what happened was that was an average moment, the checkout process at the store. In fact, for that parent, it was a moment of misery, and they flipped it. They flipped the script. They made it a moment of magic. Okay. So, got to make everything a moment of magic. No, you don't. But I don't think that happened by accident. See, the internet portrays that as something spontaneous that 3 employees just did. I don't think so. I think it was mapped. I think it was designed. I didn't go to Mount Saskatchewan in 2012 and just, hire a helicopter and jump off to the glacier and start working. There was a decade of training, a year of preparation. We had to get permits. We made a plan. We did time-honored mountaineering planning to figure out the moments of truth, to assess the risk. Our actual motto was prepare for the worst, and thank goodness we did, and only hope for the best. See, we had a process. And of course, great customer experience is a derivative of great people. You have to have great people to deliver a great customer experience. That's table stakes. But great people also need a great process. People, process equals amazing customer experience. So how do you create that great process? How do you actually create moments of magic? Well, what you have to do is you have to pay attention to the voice of the customer. That's the business that you people are in. Reputation management. So you can do that a number of ways. You can do customer satisfaction surveys, net promoter score. You can look at reputation management. If you're B2B, you can listen to recorded calls. Or if you're a retail location, you can actually observe behavior in store. Now you take Trader Joe's. I have a feeling that maybe they observed in-store behavior. I had a feeling that maybe they noticed that there was a meltdown every once in a while that a parent had with a child as they're loading up and getting groceries for the week. And that wasn't a good moment for them. Now, a lot of brands might have said, well, you know what, there's nothing we can do. I can't control somebody's child. That's not my responsibility. Your customer experience is everything that happens within your brand. If you're going to stand in a place of 100% responsibility for your customer experience, you have to take responsibility for everything that happens within the context of that customer journey. Every moment matters. Simple, period. So if a child is having a meltdown in your store, you should do something to fix it. And look what happened. It went viral. How many people do you think are shopping at Trader Joe's now? Now here's the thing. Again, this was planned. What is grocery stores dealing with? They're dealing with people buying online and then picking up. What does that mean? Well, what that means is people aren't increasing their share of wallet at the store. They want people to come into the store to buy more because there's impulse buys. When you buy online, it's calculated. You figure out what you need, you look at the best price, you get what you need, and you get it from the next place. And you don't want to go to that store because you don't want that moment of misery. Pretty simple. Flip the script. Take that moment of misery and make it into a moment of magic. Now, this thinking all came about in 1987. Jan Carlson, he was the CEO of Scandinavian Airlines. And he wrote a book called Moments of Truth. And in it, he said that any time an organization has the opportunity with an interaction, no matter how remote, that opportunity will form an impression. And that impression will be either good or bad. So it'll be either a moment of magic or a moment of misery. But, again, if you look at the stats, 8%, the other 92%, that would tell me that most touch points are just average, mediocre. So again, all you got to do is be better than the other 92%, and you can craft an amazing customer journey. In 2012, I went to a mountain with Sons of Saskatchewan and tried to attempt an unclimbed peak. We encountered many, many moments of truth. And from that I came back and a publisher asked me to write a book. They said, hey, you need to take these intense moments that you have in the mountains and translate them into a business setting. For years I thought about that. And eventually I did write a book. And it's called Thriving in the Customer Age. And in it there's a framework in which you can understand and map your customer journey. And only when you map your customer journey can you measure your customer journey. And only when you measure your customer journey can you improve your customer journey. And my hope is that everyone will read this book so we can all rise together and we can make moments of magic. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Steve? Oh yeah, one at the back.
Great presentation. My main question is when you're in the mountain, okay, and the first part of that presentation, how did you talked a lot about the customer, but what about the team? So when you're on the mountain and times look dire, how do you communicate the hope to the team? Because I think the team's awfully important for the customer journey.
You bet.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit more about that?
Now we're getting into the realm of leadership, and there's a number of schools of thought around leadership. First thing I would say is you should probably observe your leaders here at Vendasta because they're amongst the best leaders that I've experienced. They're open, they're transparent, and they lead from the heart. But for a mountain setting, the people on that team were there specifically for their skill set. Sam Unger was the best technical climber of his age in Saskatchewan. Ren Reboot was an all-around climber from alpine, ice climbing, whatever. And Jeff Dimitrovich was my medical personnel and an all-around climber. And I was the old guy with the experience to try to get them up the mountain. So the bond that was developed was one of trust. And they trusted me implicitly, and I had a huge responsibility. When I say they were young men, they're mostly all under 25, and I was like in my late 30s at the time. And so, their fathers had shook my hand and looked me in the eye and said, bring my boy back safe. But it was transparent. We made certain decisions together because we had to. And I do the same thing in business. I like to lay everything out transparently. And I like to explain the impact as I see it, and I like to see others' input because maybe there's something I haven't seen. I'm not so arrogant as to think I know everything. In fact, I've been tested. I'm like average intelligence at best. So, I need to get other people's perspective. My job is to facilitate the best decision and empower others. My job was to facilitate a life or death decision, and then we execute it as a team. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Question about the customer journey. As we get into this world of AI technology, automated processes, workflows, everything else, our faces are buried in our phones wherever we go. How important do you think that human element might be to the customer experience now that we go into this world of basically computerized everything? Do you think we're really going to lose that special touch of the human element, or can we survive with great customer experience being completely automated workflows?
Well, so you design the experience that you need based on the personas that you're trying to reach. Different people will want a different experience. There's some people that want to not talk to humans. There's others that demand it. And as a brand, you have to take the responsibility to design the experiences and the journeys that are appropriate to the various customer profiles that you have. So I got a question for you. How many presentations have you seen without slides? Okay. Was my lack of technology better or worse? Well, how well did I do? So that's almost a question of if you have human interaction or you don't. It depends on the person, how well they do.
Check. So it becomes an element of storytelling regardless of what you have behind you or around you. If the brand can tell their story through whatever media realm possible, that's what they should follow.
Well, the founder of Flaman Sales, Frank Flaman, has always said, and I believe it to be 100% true, facts tell, stories sell. It's an old adage, but it's true. And so you have to weave the brand narrative, and everybody has to believe it, and they have to be passionate about it, and that passion will come across through your team to your customers, and they will believe, and they will buy, and they will come back.
Great answer. Thank you.
Hi there. Piggybacking off of your mountain analogy, what would you do, or what is your philosophy if you were dealing with an irrational mountain that said, I want you to go through me, not up to my peak, I want you to go through, down, and take the elevator up?
Great question. So there's a framework for this, right? So you have to acknowledge that first, when you have an irrational customer, is that more than likely something occurred, something that you as a brand actually have to take responsibility for. So I said the term 100% responsibility. So right now, if I'm going to be a 100% responsible, my answer, I have to be responsible in the fact that I need to make sure I give an answer that you get it, okay? So I could sit there and explain something to you, and then you don't get it, and I can say, well, he's just dumb, he doesn't get it, right? That's not being 100% responsible. So as a brand, if you're going to be 100% responsible, whatever caused that customer to be irrational, you need to figure that out and take responsibility. That's step number one, take responsibility. Step number two is acknowledge that responsibility. Now, I have dealt with lots of customers. In fact, it's kind of epic that as a senior vice president of Flaman's, when I get a customer complaint, if my vehicle, because we drive a lot of trucks for a farming company, if it's headed east, I turn it west. I have driven across Saskatchewan to a farmer's farm to turn things around, who has now spent hundreds of thousands of dollars with us because I got the complaint, acknowledged it, took responsibility, and went and addressed it. So acknowledge it, take responsibility, and work towards a solution. That's what everybody wants, no matter how irrational they are. Does that answer? Does that complete it for you? Yep. Okay. Was I 100% responsible? Okay. All right.
Thank you so much, Steve. A round of applause.